Today at Petrochemical Strategies, Pyrolysis Maniac Part 2. In the second of a two-part series, today I'll finish the pyrolysis process of changing mixed plastic waste to petrochemical feedstocks and talk about some of the challenges in doing so. It's the 4th day of May in the year 2021. In part 1 of Pyrolysis Maniac, I talked about the 7 types of plastics and the symbols used to identify them. These symbols are important for identifying the best method for recycling, whether that be mechanical recycling or chemical recycling to petrochemical feedstocks or aromatic feedstocks. You may recall from the first video that I loaded up my reaction vessel with mixed plastic waste, turned on the heat in an oxygen-free environment, and started the pyrolysis process. What you didn't see in part 1 of that video is that I added even more plastic waste after the video was done to make sure that we had enough petrochemical feedstock at the end of the process. It is important to note that what you get out of the pyrolysis process depends on what you put into the process. I put in polyethylene, polypropylene, and polystyrene, so what I'm going to get out is going to resemble a petrochemical feedstock. If I would have included polyvinyl chloride and number 7 plastics, I would have gotten out something that looked like aromatics feedstock. Since part 1, I have been applying just the right amount of heat over a precisely calculated amount of time in order to break down the bonds of that mixed waste plastic in a rather controlled manner. If I did my calculations right, I should end up with something that closely resembles gasoline. Let's take a look at what we got. As an aside, the process did take a lot of energy. Well, I'd say this looks and smells quite like gasoline. Let me get a sample out and send it to the lab for testing. I have been reviewing the lab data, and the hydrocarbon analysis looks really good. However, impurities are really high. Sodium came out much higher than anticipated, as are chlorides. This got me thinking. The other day I was making a sandwich for lunch and I realized I was out of mustard again. I started wondering, did I throw the empty bottle of mustard into the reaction vessel, or did I throw the full bottle into the reaction vessel? There were a lot of impurities in the sample, including heavy metals. There was a lot of iron and a lot of calcium. So let's take a look at what was in the reaction vessel, what was left over, and see where those impurities could have come from. The first thing I see here looks like a piece of cinder block, which would explain the iron and the calcium. I also have here what looks like a dog bone. I don't know how that got in there. So we also have here, looks like an old aerosol can of some sort. Oh, this is interesting. Looks like we have 2 cans of organic pumpkin. Oh, here's some plastic that didn't get fully dissolved. It's some bubble wrap. And what do we have here? Oh, this is really interesting. Looks like we have a battery backup and looks like an old BlackBerry. And look at this. It's a genie in a lamp. And here we have, oh, it's a book from Oscar Wilde on selected poems. Hey, and lastly, look at this. It's my crystal ball that I used in the top 10 predictions for all things affecting petrochemicals. Let me wrap up by summarizing some of the key challenges facing recycling plastics by pyrolysis. I was talking to somebody in the waste management industry. They said most households do not properly sort or clean materials before putting them into their recycling bin. This causes problems at the waste management facility. It increases the cost to clean and separate materials. For plastic recycling by pyrolysis, it also increases the likelihood of contamination, as we just saw. No matter how much you clean the surface of mixed waste plastics, these plastics are going to contain residual materials such as additives or colorants. These residual materials may be made up of something that is a poison or a contaminant in the petrochemical process. They can be removed by investing into things like a water wash or metals removal, but this all adds to the cost of plastic recycling. And speaking of cost, I mentioned the cost of sorting, cleaning, and pre-treatment, but there's also the energy or thermodynamic cost. Plastics are in a pretty low energy state. You have to add energy to them like we did with this pyrolysis to break the bonds apart to make feedstocks out of them. You have to add energy again to crack those molecules to make them into ethylene and propylene, only to convert them back to the plastics they once were. This whole process consumes a lot of energy and a lot of cost and can be multiple times the cost of cracking virgin feedstocks. As I mentioned in Pyrolysis Maniac Parts 1 and 2, there are a lot of challenges recycling plastics by pyrolysis. Recycling plastics has the potential to reduce the amount of plastics that end up in landfills and the environment in general, which is a good thing. We know there are a lot of benefits using plastics, and their use is not going to go away. Despite the high cost and other challenges, pyrolysis technology does work. That's why we have the Pyrolysis Maniac. Thank you for watching this video today. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment, and I will see you next time.